Today is edition of Back Roads of Illinois. We were bringing you lasted for farming sources and information sponsored by AgriGold. I am Cesar Delgado. I am your host of today's program. I am glad that you are here. Well, today is Friday at this time of the weekend after this busy week. We were talking about the land value and the latest news on the farmland. What is the trends for today's cash rent land? Probably urban areas as well. What's impact on the farmland? We were joining with Ray Brownfield from Land Pro LLC. Welcome to him on the show about farming in the suburbs of Chicago. Then we were talking about the commodities markets with Brian Basting from Advanced Trading. Otherwise, this is your rural news sponsored by AgriGold. In Washington, D.C., have a World Agriculture Outlook on February 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time and 1:30 Central Time for the Outlook. This week was confirmation of Robert Kennedy Jr. Agriculture Group is concerned about his stand on corn syrup and soybean oil on the food industry. Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to be a FDA administrator. This is your rural news sponsored by AgriGold. This is your commodity markets for this afternoon, sponsored by Kyle Bumstead. He's your commodity broker from Allendale Incorporated. Corn futures is down at 3 to 5 cents. Soybean futures is down at 3 to 4 cents. Chicago wheat is down at 5 to 10 cents. Let's take a look for the livestock markets. Cattle is up at 9 to 5 cents. Feeder cattle is up at 5 to 4 cents. Lean hogs is up at 5 to 9 cents. This been your commodity markets for this afternoon. We were talking about the land value and the latest news on the farmland. What is the trends for today's cash rent land? Probably urban areas as well. What's impact on the farmland? We were joining with Ray Brownfield from Land Pro LLC. Welcome to the show, Ray. Let's talk about the land value in Illinois. Could you tell us about that?
The land value in Illinois has been extremely exciting over the last several years. I've been in this business over 50 years. I've never seen that kind of acceleration in land values from about the end of 2020 up through portions of 2023, basically because of a worldwide drought at this time. Brazil, Argentina had issues. The Ukraine was a problem when Russia invaded because of the wheat issues over there. And all the things came together to cause extremely high commodity markets at that time, which then translated into high market values for land. So there was money to be made, and we all like that in agriculture. There was lots of money that then was transferred into land purchases because most farmers, when they have land that they want to purchase, and if there's money available, they will do such. Also, interest rates were what, 2% or maybe 3 at the very most. So we said all the perfect world came together at that point in time, causing a very aggressive type of marketplace. In fact, from 2000 and probably 2020 to 2023, the average land values in Illinois average went up close to 48%.
What is the cash land value in Illinois from the University of Illinois from Gary Shetke?
Gary Schnitke, I know quite well, does a really nice job analyzing over the many acres of land in Illinois and to what he sees from what he hears from different surveys that we're all a part of, actually. So he's seen the land values, of course, translated into various kinds of production classes, which we call productivity index. Mm-hmm. So in the productive index of Class A soil, we've seen it go from anywhere currently from actually 15,000 acre on up to 18,000 per acre. We're now seeing, I think Gary would point this out as well, we're seeing some downward trend because the markets aren't there that they were. Higher input costs are going on, interest rates are up, and it's just one of those times we go through this kind of a cycle where I think we're going down probably 3 to 5 to 6 or 7% from the high end of the market.
Ray, could you tell us about your company and your experience with your career?
Well, it's been a very good, I've been very blessed to have a wonderful career. Actually, I've been over 50 years in this business and I've loved almost every day. I'm a farm boy. I was born and raised in East Central Illinois. Now own my family farm, which I'm very blessed to have, be able to do that. And I've been able to work with people, which I love to do, to accomplish their objectives of land ownership, to be able to work with farmers who are appreciative of the land and conservation, and which is really important for the soil, because we only own it for a short period of time and it passes to other folks. So my goal has always been to make it better than it was when we got involved with it. And so my career has spanned, I say, over 50 years. I retired from a major company in 2003. I was president of a large agriculture company owned by Prudential, and that was good. I took the retirement and thanked them very much. Formed my own company in 2003 called Lampro LLC, and then was able to continue to grow this company to the point where it is today. We really believe in high quality, but I'm getting older, as we all do. My wife let me know that, Ray, we need to think about the future. And I said, yes, we do. So January 1st of 2025, I sold this company, Lampro LLC, to People's Company, which is located in Des Moines, Iowa. I've known this company for 22 years. They're high quality, good serving people. And so I am now the managing broker of the company I sold to, and I'm enjoying that too, because I love to sell real estate and work with people. And we also do a lot of professional farm management here. So nothing's really changing other than the fact I don't have to pay the bills anymore.
Did you grow up in the farm near Champaign?
Yes, my family farm is a little town called Thawville, Illinois, which is between Champaign and Kankakee, and not too far from Gilman, Illinois, which is right on I-57. So, yeah, that's where I was born and raised. I still own that farm. The farmhouse I was born and raised in is still there, and we go down on weekends with my wife and our little dog and my grandkids and really enjoy it. So that house is there as it was, a little modernized from where it was at that back in the day. But I'd say I'm very, very fortunate to have all that, and I feel very blessed.
Wow, that's awesome. Thanks, Ray. I enjoyed our conversation. Do you have any final thoughts on ARC and PLC and the Farm Bill?
Well, the Farm Bill is, with the new administration, I believe that's being re-looked at. It didn't pass, of course, because of the election coming. I think that everybody knew there would be changes perhaps coming. And those various options that you just mentioned really pertain to the individual farms and and what they want to try to accomplish from risk management. So I won't get into a lot of detail because every farm is a bit different on those decisions that are made. But we do plan to see a program, I think, here in the next several months that hopefully is beneficial to everybody. I think the insurance program is the most important part of that, because there are times when we go at high risk in the farming business. And so that's an important part to be able to maintain the stability in the farming industry. So if there are issues, that the farmers are somewhat protected. And the reason for that is if we're not, the availability of good food and fiber is put at jeopardy. So I think we really need to understand that part of the program, and hopefully it's done quite well. And I think it probably will be.
What is the Arkin PLC? Could you explain to our audience? They don't know what it is.
Well, there's various options you can choose, and I have to agree that I may not have all the details because I haven't really recently worked with a lot of it. Most of our farms are cash rented, so we really don't get involved with that side of the business. That's the farm operator that makes those decisions. And so, rather than to delve into detail, maybe at this point in time, I'll kind of leave that alone. We can always talk about it at a later point in time if you want more detail.
Of course. Thanks, Ray. I enjoyed our conversation for today.
And thank you very much. It's been a real privilege to be on with you. I appreciate that very much.
This is Ray Brownfield from Brownfield LLC on Back Roads. We were talking about the commodities markets with Brian, basting from Advanced Trading. Otherwise, how are you today?
I'm doing good, Cesar. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with our discussion on the Brazilian crop in Mato Grosso for right now. Could you tell us about that, Brian?
The soybean harvest has been slower than normal in Mato Grosso, Cesar, because it's been too wet. They've had quite a bit of rain here during the month of January, and they have not been able to get into the fields, well below normal for the last week of January. There is a window, it looks like, perhaps of opportunity of dryness the next week to 10 days. However, there is indication that next weekend it could start to rain again and maybe quite heavy the last day or two of January into February. The implications of that are twofold. Obviously, it will continue to slow the soybean harvest in Mato Grosso, which would eventually slow their exports of beans. And it would also slow the planting of their safrinha corn crop, because the safrinha corn crop, of course, is double cropped after the soybean harvest. And Mato Grosso is the largest safrinha corn state in the country of Brazil. So it has some major implications, maybe more so for the corn going forward.
What your counterpart is in Brazil? What tell you?
He just had a conversation, Cesar just had a conversation with a very large producer in Mato Grosso, and he is unable to harvest his beans at the moment. Too wet, 35% moisture, waiting for it to dry down. Again, I would say that if this dry period happens the next week or so, perhaps more producers could get in and harvest their beans. However, it is a challenge right now. It is just simply too wet to get the beans harvested. And it's something that as we move into the last week of January here, and especially into February, will really be on the market's radar the next few weeks.
How is the yield with the beans?
It's mixed. Some pretty good, some not so good, which is typical of early, whether it's in Brazil or it's here in the U.S. The prospects at this time, however, are still for nationwide there to be a record crop. It's just stop and go at the very beginning. Again, I'd remind your listeners here, Cesar, that it's very typical in the U.S. to see the same thing. The early yields sometimes are all over the map, but for the moment, the weather overall for the country, it's been a bit dry in the south, but overall in the country still favors a record bean crop somewhere in that 170 million ton range for 24 or 25 here.
Do you have some concerns about tariffs as going to be implemented for the future?
I do have concerns in this respect, Caesar. It's just adds an element of uncertainty. We don't know. Obviously, the new administration is less than a week into their charge here, and we're just going to have to see. We saw, of course, excuse me, several years ago that there'd be quite a battle there between the U.S. and China initially, and eventually that was resolved with some agreements to the degree that China agreed to import more U.S. corn, for example, and other products, and so on and so forth. But initially, that caused a significant drop in U.S. exports of beans to China and a significant drop in price. So, yes, from a producer standpoint, anytime you inject uncertainty in terms of what China is going to do into the equation, it's a very major point because China is the largest importer of soybeans in the world by far, and we still have a book of beans to China. Let me check. March corn is bumping up against that right now, for example. Went to 494 and a half, I believe, yesterday. I think it's important to be aware of those technical figures, Caesar. I think it's dangerous or a little bit unwise, if you will, to hang your hat on a price having to achieve a technical objective. For example, I've seen many times over the years where if a price level is set and everyone starts talking about that price level, it'll either not reach that price level or it'll go sharply above that price level. That's just one observation that I'll share. So again, I would step back from that and say, rather than put a lot of energy into identifying those points, put my energy into managing my crop. And by that, I mean, again, going back to the comments that I made earlier about getting control of those bushels. And regardless of market direction, you're going to be able to be well positioned because you've got a floor underneath those bushels, price floor, and you've also left the upside open. But short answer to your question is, I would say, $11 on beans and $5 on corn for what it's worth. But I wouldn't spend a lot of energy on either one of those.
True, Brian. Let's take a look for the livestock markets on this afternoon. What is your thoughts on the feeder cattle?
All-time record highs, Caesar. Quite impressive to see the feeder cattle market approaching $300 here as you and I speak. I believe the January contract today closed at 278. It's never been at these levels before. Same thing with live cattle. So we all know whether it's feeder cattle or corn or any commodity market, what goes up eventually will come down. We just don't know from what level it will be. So I think the same principles that you and I talked about a moment ago apply to feeder cattle and live cattle or lean hogs, and that is producers of those commodities would look to get floor underneath the market, leave the upside open. If you're a producer of feeder cattle, for example, a put option purchase. Same thing with live cattle and lean hogs, but especially with the cattle making all-time highs here, that you want to leave the market, let it run. If it wants to continue to run to the upside, rally to the upside, let it go, but also be defending your balance sheet via the marketing tools in your marketing toolbox. And that just depends on which one you're most comfortable with. But eventually, something will change and the market will run out of steam. We don't know when that will happen or what level, but for the moment, it's quite impressive to see the market as strong as it is.
How is the Packers bids for it right now in the Midwest, Brian?
Sharply higher here today, Caesar, and the live cattle I believe I saw live cattle bids or live cattle trades this afternoon were several dollars higher across parts of the South. I assume that the same strength would be evident regardless of region of the country. So it's been quite impressive to see all-time highs over $200 for cash cattle and over $325, $330 for dress cattle uh, quoted this week. So very firm at the moment.
Do you have any final thoughts on this afternoon's markets for now?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me again, Cesar. I always enjoy our conversations. Just as, again, producers, whether you're a producer of corn, soybeans, or as you mentioned, cattle, feeder cattle, live cattle, we're seeing stronger markets. And obviously, as producers of those commodities, we enjoy those stronger markets. But we all know that stronger markets don't last forever, and we want to defend our balance sheet. So examine the marketing toolbox that is available to you. Design a strategy that's as flexible as possible. In this case, that leaves the upside open. Excuse me, in case those markets want to continue to rally, but also protect yourself uh, against the downside, which we know eventually will come. We just don't know from what level that will occur. But that's what I'd share from a marketing standpoint, Cesar, is that the good news is we've got tools available to us as producers of those commodities to manage price movement. And I would strongly advise that your listeners to avoid price prediction. That's a recipe for trouble. Again, I'll share that example of the market historically in my experience many times, not every time, but many times, not reaching a price objective that you have in mind or going well past that. So acknowledge that we don't know where the market's going, but acknowledge that we can manage the market whichever direction it goes, and be excited about the opportunities here for much stronger markets than they were several months ago.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks to Ray Brownfield and Brian Basting. This been Back Roads of Illinois. I am Cesar Delgado. You have a great day.